Now to a newly released report that alleges strong ties between Cuba and left-wing movements in the U.S. The report also addresses Cuban influence in Latin America and right here in the U.S. NBC6 politics reporter Hatzel Vela went through the report and joins us live to break down all the main points for us. Hatzel?
So the report does a couple things here. One, it calls out U.S.-based groups and their relationship with the Cuban government. And in terms of influence, it shows how Cuba has been successful in places like Venezuela and Nicaragua. The 100-page report put together by the State Department makes the argument Cuba's importance is not its economy or military power, but its ability to build and sustain political intelligence and ideological networks across Latin America and beyond. Two good examples, the report says, are Nicaragua and Venezuela. The Sandinista revolution, the report points out, is one of Cuba's most significant successes, with the Cubans helping train the Nicaraguan rebels, which overthrew decades-old Somoza dictatorship. The other example, Cuba's influence in Venezuela since Hugo Chavez took office. And we know, most recently, the Cuban security forces were guarding Nicolás Maduro when he was extracted in a U.S. military operation.
The Cuban regime's sprawling intelligence and ideological network helped to build the far left in our country and in our hemisphere. And it remains inextricably linked to the far left groups and movements across and beyond the West.
Here in Cuban exile, some activists see the reports as important.
I think that the information contained shows why this regime in Cuba is a threat to the entire hemisphere, to the U.S., how it's been consistently behind efforts to subvert American democracy, American politics.
When it comes to espionage, Cuba has a decades-old track record of success. So good, the FBI recently did a segment on their counterintelligence in the U.S.
The bottom line is Cuba has punched well above their weight for a long time. For such a small island, they have really been a thorn in our side because they're really good at what they do.
Here's NBC6 political analyst Alex Penales.
Clearly, there will be some who will question the legitimacy of this report because it comes directly from the President's Department of State and not from an independent agency.
But in the end, Penales says the report strengthens the case against Cuba and bringing about change on the communist island. And when talking about Rubio's comments, Cuba's foreign minister says the secretary, and I quote here, deliberately overlooks the protection granted on U.S. soil to those who finance, organize, incite, and train for terrorist acts against Cuba, primarily in the state of Florida. Coincidentally, he goes on to say, his home state. In the newsroom, Hatzel Vela, NBC6 News.